Wine Fringe.
Welcome to Wine Fringe. My name is Jill Smedley, and I am a marketer in the industry, and I am here with Jake Blottinger, who is a winemaker in the Virginia wine industry as well. So, Jake, how long have you been in the industry?
So I've been doing this for 10 years total now, going on 11.
Oh, wow. Quite the seasoned professional.
That's what they told me.
I'm still a youngin'.
Yeah, so how long have you been in the industry?
I think we're coming up on 5 years.
Is that 5 years marketing in the wine industry?
No, that's about 3 years marketing in the wine industry, and then about 2 years, a little bit, maybe more than that, of being a pourer. So I started out as a pourer because it was my COVID job of all things.
Right.
So then that transitioned into a management role, and yeah, here I am marketing.
Nice.
How did you get into wine?
So I was training to be a sommelier in the restaurant industry at the time, and I had a really bad brunch service. Customers were obnoxious. It was a long day, and I came home and I was telling my wife, I don't know if I want to just wait tables for the rest of my life because, in some regard, if you're not a som and you get into personalizing cellars or directing a beverage program, you're probably just going to be an over glorified server. And that's the unfortunate truth for sommeliers. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. It's going to be really hard. And my wife was like, okay. And went to bed, got up the next day, went back to work, come home again. And she had my personal information all over the couch. And she's like, hey, guess what I did? And I was like, what did you do? She's like, I signed you up for community college to get a degree in winemaking at just 45 minutes away. And you're going to start August. And I was like, ha ha ha, we don't have the money for that. And she said, no, I got you financial aid too. So I got to go to school for free.
Emily figured this out.
My wife figured this out
in one morning.
in one evening. And so she started thinking about it when I went to bed and researched it. And then she just did it. Now it's definitely illegal to do that, to take someone's personal information.
But you're married. What's hers? What's mine is yours.
No. We were dating at this time.
Oh, okay.
I don't even think we were engaged yet.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So then I got a degree from Surrey Community College in North Carolina. They have I think it's 5-acre vineyard now, but at the time it was 10 acres. And they have a full almost 5,000 case winery, 1,000 to 5,000 sized kind of thing. And the students actually work in the vineyard, pick the grapes, manage the vines, learn to spray, learn all about pests and disease control. And then they go to the cellar and they process the fruit that they just picked. And then they go and sit down for 3 hours in a lecture class. And then on Tuesdays, you're drinking wine for 4 hours. It's taste and spit. And then it's taste and spit. I did a class. It was all Tannats. I'll never forget. It was 40 Tannats.
I would literally not be able to
I couldn't taste for the rest of the week.
The tannins alone, I feel like, would just burn out your palate.
Yeah. So while I was in college, I quit the restaurant business, didn't finish being a som, worked at a bunch of wineries. Somebody actually hired me to be their assistant winemaker and vineyard manager because they knew I was going to the school. Okay. And they just gave me the job and no experience. And they trained me and worked with me. And I was doing that full time, going to school full time, and then working at any cellar that would let me in the door. So I worked at a bunch of different places. Most of them didn't pay.
But I feel like that also helped your experience, though, because you were able to see a bunch of different operations and kind of develop your own methods through that.
Well, that's a good topic for another episode.
What not to do?
Well, we can talk about how the conspiracy theories of the wine industry and all the vendors that come into the colleges that teach the students about what products they need to use to make wine. So you graduate thinking you have to get everything out of these catalogs. But that's not what we're going to talk about.
You, the ever conspiracy theorist. No, I think both of our spouses played quite the role, because my husband literally came to me and was like, you like wine. And we moved to wine country. And I was like, I drink box wine. I have not even good box wine, bottom shelf Franzia. I have zero palate. It was not good. I was, the 4-bottle bag girl for a long time.
But that's where everybody should start.
Yeah, but I mean, it didn't mean that I had some qualification just because I drank wine.
I mean, yeah, you drink wine. Did you like it?
I mean, yes, but it was not good quality wine. If I drink that now that's a completely different story.
I think, well, there are some people like you mow the lawn and you're not going to go inside and have a nice glass of red wine. You're going to mow the lawn and then crack open like the crappiest beer ever. You're going to find like a Bud Light.
I'll drink a nice bottle any day of the week.
Well, I will tell you, as someone who mows the lawn in the heat, like I would rather a cold, crappy beer than a very nice bottle of wine.
Who do you think mows our lawn? I do that.
Oh my God, poor Curtis.
No, not poor Curtis. Curtis is living the life.
So he got you into the wine?
He did. Actually, no, it was him and my little sister who was working at a winery that we both worked at for like 3 years together. Excuse me.
No, you got a name drop.
Oh, am I name dropping?
You got a name
I worked at Barrel Oak.
Yeah, Barrel Oak's cool.
And she goes, "Oh, I'm a runner there. It's great. We should come out and work as a pour." And I was like, "No, dude. Like, they didn't call me back from turning in my application. I'm not gonna go working there." And she's like, "No, really. I got you an interview."
Oh.
My 16-year-old little sister is like, "Hey, I got you an interview at a winery," and that's how it all started.
Usually it's the other way around.
Yeah,
normally the adults give the minors alcohol.
Exactly. No, she was a runner. They didn't get alcohol.
Okay. Just needed that clarification.
Yeah, no. Kurt was like, "Oh, you should work at a winery." And then my little sister's like, No, you should. Partially because she just wanted to hang out when she wasn't in school. So.
All right. Yeah. So then you worked there and then you weaseled your way into a marketing gig.
Okay, it wasn't quite like that. I actually have a degree in marketing. Thank you.
Do you?
No, I have a degree in marketing. I went to college and I was like, I'm going to start my own business at some point in time. Like, what can I learn the most from? And not necessarily like, what do I like to do? I wanted to actually improve myself.
Right.
So it was between accounting, which there were plenty of accounting softwares coming out at the time. And I thought, by the time I have my own company, I can do a little bit of my own accounting with the accounting softwares, and then by the time I'm making enough money, I can pay someone. That's how I rationalized it.
You were trying to account for it?
I was, and I was trying to do anything but accounting.
So
that's why I chose marketing.
Okay, marketing, and then why the wine industry? Is it something you actually enjoy doing, or
I fell in love with wine? Okay. Well, I fell in love with wine, and like where we live, it's like you kick an anthill, and there's like 5 wineries around here, so it's
throw a rock.
It's a huge part of our economy.
Yeah, especially here in Virginia. Like, I mean. Well, we all know it's like what 5th or 6th now in the country.
Yeah,
4th in the country.
Flip flopping. Yeah,
I don't know. It depends on who you ask. But yeah, we finally got into that like top 5.
We're ranked.
Yeah, we're ranked. Yeah,
we're ranked. Quite the time to be in the Virginia wine industry. Fine wine. Let's go.
Yeah, March Madness is next month. Let's do this.
Yeah.
So. All right, cool.
So let's talk a little bit about the podcast and why we're doing it. So the name of the podcast is Wine Fringe because there's all these fringe topics in the industry we don't talk about.
Yeah. So I guess the idea started when we were, we're working on things at work, and then we started having these conversations over wine, and and it's always venting and ranting and typical work stuff. Everybody does that with their jobs.
Lots of sarcasm.
But then it was like I think kind of this was like you would ask me a question, I would be like, oh, it's actually blah 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 blah. And then it was like you were surprised sometimes by the answer because it was either really simple or very there was some kind of miscommunication on your end, or maybe there was like a misunderstanding. And the more we kind of talked and the more I talked with other people, I think we started to realize that there are a lot of like misconceptions and inconsistencies. And some of those things people think like, oh, you're not supposed to talk about those. Mm-hmm. Well, we both work in the wine industry. And we like talking about these. Mm-hmm. But I think if we talk about these on a podcast, and people actually listen to it, knock on wood.
We'll have at least one listener.
At least one listener. We won't name her yet. Are we talking about the same one?
I think so.
Oh, okay. You know who you are.
Yeah. You liked us first on Instagram.
You did.
We have a t-shirt coming your way, by the way.
I mean, you're not supposed to tell her.
I'm telling her.
Oh,
She's not going to know what's on it.
So, but I think that's kind of where this idea comes from. And so we're hoping that listeners will hear some of the things that you and I think about the industry, and also like the truths that we know that people don't know. And that will create not trying to raise the education level, but also like teach consumers how to make good purchasing decisions on wine, not be afraid to chase the wines they like, and also learn like maybe we talk about sulfur and what it actually is, and what the difference between is organic, and bring on some producers, like that kind of cool stuff that doesn't usually happen on every podcast anymore.
And kind of empowering consumers too to have fun and engaging conversations with tasting room staff.
Right.
Challenge them.
Yeah. I think that's the most important thing right now. We talk about this all the time. It's like part of the wine industry is becoming not fun.
Yeah, because we're trying to be too stickler about how we convey wine.
Right.
And it's a big topic amongst industry professionals on LinkedIn. I don't know if you're on LinkedIn. I don't think you are. You're about to be.
I'm going to be on LinkedIn, apparently.
But they keep talking about how we talk about wine and like the language we use and how it's too formal for current consumers and kind of breaking all of that down.
Yeah, I think, I read an article recently from a person that was, younger than me even. Mm-hmm. And they went into a winery and they did a tasting, and they said that they couldn't focus on the wine because they could feel the stares from the tasting room staff, from the other guests, which were much older than them, and they were trying to learn and understand wine, and they finally just were like, I'm uncomfortable. So they finished their tasting and they just left, and it took them another 5 or 10 years or something to come back into the wine industry. They mostly just continued to buy from the grocery store and maybe a local wine shop or something like that. And they kind of grew their own education because they were too unsure of stepping into a tasting room. Yeah. Because of that, like we've created this premium mindset in the wine industry. And that's fine some places.
But we also need to differentiate ourselves in how we convey wine in the Virginia industry alone. Yeah. I mean, this could be a bigger industry-wide issue.
Sure. But I mean, my favorite wineries are the ones that are the most casual, and the staff will, even if the winery owner or winemaker is not there, but the staff will actually have a conversation with you, and you can hear that they're enthusiastic about the producer themselves, even though they work there, but they're like interested in why they do what they do.
Now, have you ever personally had an experience like that in a winery where people look at you because you are younger,
right,
and immediately start to not challenge you, but kind of look down on you?
So for the first, I'd say 2-3 years, at Chrysalis Vineyards, every time I would introduce myself as the winemaker, somebody usually said, no, the head winemaker, not the assistant winemaker. And it used to ruffle my feathers because I was young and I was already like really difficult to deal with in some aspects. But then it became like this running joke for me. And so I stopped introducing myself as a winemaker just completely. And I'd be like, hi, I'm Jake Blottinger. Thanks for coming out, and start talking about wine and having like this natural conversation where
where you're unraveling it for them,
right?
And they come to the realization without asking.
And what I found is like, especially with like people, younger consumers or consumers that are getting into the industry, that they seem to like that better. It's more organic, it's more real, and they get the opportunity to like actually talk to a winemaker and say the stupid things and ask the dumb questions. And they're not dumb or stupid. No. They're actual questions. These people really do. If somebody's got a question, it needs to be answered. That's really what that is. But they're able to have this conversation and they go, oh, are you the winemaker? And it's like, yes, I am. So
we kind of talked about why we're doing the podcast, what we're talking about. So let's just go ahead and dive into our first topic. And today's topic, we're going to be talking about Vinifera, native, and hybrid grapes.
Right. So I think this is a good starter topic for a new podcast, but also just to throw out there because there's a lot of like misconceptions, like what is better, what's the future of wine? And I think you can't answer those questions by looking at, 3 styles of varieties or 3 classes of varieties. You really need to look at it from like an angle of other things, like what the producer's trying to do, what they're trying to grow. Maybe it's something they like or they're passionate about, and that's why they're growing blah, blah, blah.
So more of the art behind it?
Yeah.
Intention?
Most of the time, producers are probably not thinking about like, oh, I only have to do vinifera, which are the Petit Verdot, Cab Sauv, Tannat, like the traditional European varieties. Most of the time, they're not going, I have to plant these because vinifera is superior. They're planting their Cab Franc in a good spot because that's a good spot for Cab Franc. And in the worst spot, they're going to plant something like a hybrid like Chambourcin because Chambourcin does really well in bad spots. Even it's not supposed to, but it does.
Yeah. I mean, I find that, okay, so from a production standpoint, that makes sense. But like owners sometimes come in and say, these are what we want to grow without having done the testing and then just plant and then you have
that definitely happens a lot.
Inconsistent results.
That definitely happens a lot. There are a lot of wineries, even here in Virginia, where the owner of the winery is like, I love big California
And
reds.
you can plant what you like.
Of course, if you go pot them up, somebody's got to drink it.
Yeah.
But sure. I think there are a lot of producers that I would say there's a portion of the industry that plants what they want to drink. Mm-hmm. And then there's a portion of the industry that's planting because they really believe that hybrids are the future. Mm-hmm. And then there are people that grow up to a certain region of the country and they fall in love with something from their childhood. Mm-hmm. And they're like, I want to grow that and make wine from it because that's what I know. And so that's kind of like the three mindsets that I think are most common among producers. And then there are like the producers that go, these varieties do very well at my site. I'm going to do that.
Yeah. I think and then we'll look at the consumer perspective. Right. A lot of people gravitate towards Vinifera because it's the household names.
Right. It's the things they know.
It's the things they know. It's the Cab Sav. I don't see Petit Verdot very often in like the grocery stores or the bottle shops. And I'm just trying to come up with a couple of like Sauvignon Blanc is like another big one you see all the time.
Well, that's kind of so like Vinifera. These are huge topics, but like Vinifera has old world, new world, right? And so the old world is just like where wine started from. So all the countries that were growing wine before pre-phylloxera, right? So there's this little aphid that eats into the roots and it threatens the entire wine industry worldwide, like globally, like everything's going to die. And then some guy in Texas, and we'll get into that maybe later on another podcast, but a gentleman basically develops grafting where you take a Native American variety and you cut a hole in the top of it and you put a Vinifera plant in it. And because it's harder, thicker, wood and roots that the aphids weren't able to eat through the roots and it would kill the vines. And so when that happens, like everybody's losing their vines in the world. And then this guy discovers this method and it's successful. And then everybody starts buying up these root stocks and then grafting their vineyard to the root stock. And then suddenly you see this revamp of the entire wine industry globally. And that's when all these other countries that had always kind of already been trying to grow wine, like America, Chile, Argentina, Australia, those are new world wine countries because of and that's just like the pre-phylloxera thing is what cuts that in half. So now you have old world wine and new world wine. And we know what's famous in the old world, right? It's Bordeaux, it's Burgundy, it's Champagne, right? It's Rioja. Then you have new world where it becomes kind of single varietally focused. Cab Sauv, Cab Franc. Those are big varieties worldwide. Chardonnay, huge variety worldwide. And so that finding Petit Verdot in a grocery store is going to be rare because of this old world to new world. And now we're kind of in the entire wine industry is kind of in a flux state right now where we're waiting to see what the next big thing is going to be. Here in Virginia, Petit Verdot is huge.
Yeah.
That answer your question?
Yeah, that answered my question. But I mean, again, we come back to Vinifera is what a lot of consumers are familiar with.
Right.
Natives are something that are becoming increasingly popular, I would say, in Virginia.
So
we're working on that movement, but that's still...
So natives.
Yeah.
Natives are a complicated topic. I mean, all of this is complicated. I should probably stop saying that.
We're breaking it down.
Right.
Deconstructing.
So what is a native? Go ahead and name some natives.
Well, I can only think of a hybridized native.
Okay. What else you got?
I mean, Norton is the only one I can think of for Virginia, but that's a hybridized native, and we always call it a native grape.
Yeah, and it's native to Virginia, and it's a hybrid because it was crossed by, Dr. Norton.
It's into two categories.
Yeah, so it's kind of the native hybrid.
Yeah.
So a native, actually, you do know them, you just don't realize. Concord.
Yeah,
right.
I did know.
So Welch's, if you've had Welch's, you've had Concord.
Yeah, but not wine.
No, I mean, I've had Concord wine. It's pretty good. I've also had, we're drinking muscadine right now from a winery in Florida. Muscadine is native to the Southeast. It's just, they call it a bullet grape. So it's like a big giant, like, oh God, it's like the size of a large bouncy ball. And they call it a bullet grape because it doesn't grow in clusters. It grows
spread throughout the vines.
Yeah. And so to pick it, you actually shake the vine usually, and they just fall, and that's how you know they're ready to be picked. It's not even like a scientific method. They just like shake the vine, and it's really cool. And it makes a very particular, unique wine. So this is a San Sebastian Vintner's White from Florida, and it's a very nice muscadine wine. Like, I grew up drinking this kind of stuff. Like, this is backyard wine for me. This is like home.
But this is my first time having muscadine.
Right. So what are your thoughts on having a native and having muscadine?
Muscadine. I tend to lean towards drier wine, so it is very sweet for me. And it's got a white Concord grape kind of vibe to it.
Right. So,
like, very strong.
And here's the setup for this. This is why I kind of asked you.
Okay, but it also gives like sweet petite manseng vibes.
Right, and I can see that. Yeah. So that nose that you're talking about, that's very similar to Concord, is also the same nose that you would find on muscadine and also some other natives. They all have that what people refer to as foxy.
It's quite the term.
I know. It sounds sexier than it really is. It's referring to like fox urine.
Delightful.
Yeah, you can thank our founding fathers for coining that term.
Who just sat around and was like, oh man, you know what that smells like.
I mean, come on. It's Ben Franklin and our boy TJ just sitting down and like drinking wine. Like, this smells like fox urine. Let's go hunt some foxes and find out. But no, this is foxy, and that's that. And most natives, I will say most natives are going to have this nose. And there's lots of ways to work around it and stuff. But at the same time, like, this is just a native nose.
Okay.
And that's how you can, I mean,
identify it.
You can pick it out immediately. I'm not saying it's good or bad. And let's be clear, right?
No, and this part of the reason we're talking about this is to show the value in each style and the value in each.
Right. And so most producers that have a muscadine are going to do like a sweet style because it kind of helps. I mean, it's the South, and the South is the land of milk and honey.
Yeah.
They like everything sweet.
Yeah, like everything sweet. Their tea is sweet. Their wine is sweet.
I mean, Coke and Pepsi are down in the South.
Yeah, it's very popular.
And sweet tea is like on every menu. So, of course, this is going to be sweet. Dry muscadine is also very good. It's a different style.
I feel like that flies over like a lead balloon, though, in that area, based on your description.
Making wine in North Carolina, like I've made muscadine. I worked down in Georgia for an entire year. We did 30,000 cases of muscadine just out the door. So you think people aren't drinking this, but they guzzle it down.
No, I believe that people like sweet wine.
Yeah, of course.
But up here, sweet wine drinkers look a little bit different. Like, I mean, they're normally people who are younger drinkers. They're not more seasoned drinkers who are drinking sweeter wines.
I think we want to blanket that idea.
I mean, that's just from being old. Yeah, you see.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think if we had this in a Virginia winery, even in Nova, like, this wine would probably fly off the shelf. I think a muscadine would work here. It doesn't grow well here, but somebody could produce this here and sell it, and it would be successful. And it would be a large demographic. You would have like your little old ladies like love this style because it's sweet. It doesn't taste like there's alcohol in it.
No, it doesn't taste like there's any alcohol.
And that's kind of the success story behind muscadine at the end of the day. It's 11% alcohol, but it's sweet, and it's going to sail right through the right person, and they're going to guzzle it down.
I mean, I guess there's a market for every wine.
There is, sure. But muscadine, very foxy. So Concord would be very foxy as well.
Just love that term. I think there needs to be a T-shirt that says whatever wine, muscadine, Concord wine is foxy.
Yeah, when I was working down in Georgia, we were trying to figure out, with a marketing firm, trying to figure out like how to sell muscadine to like higher end clients, and I was like, why don't we call the wine foxy? And then make it like sexy. And the marketing team loved that. And they came up with all these like different ways to like make it sound really sexy. And it worked for a time. And then, we changed labels a lot, and we were constantly rebranding ourselves. But for a time like that, we must have moved 2,000 or 3,000 cases just.
I would imagine
because it's fun.
Yeah,
right?
I think we need to have more fun in the wine industry.
Absolutely.
This is something you and I talk about all the time. Stop being such sticklers.
Yeah. I think it's because Virginia is finally being recognized for a great growing region, and so now they've spent, I'd say, 30 years, 40 years really raising the bar. Yeah. And now they've finally gotten recognized for that hard work. And so now they're like, we can't stop now. But the problem is that consumers are changing now.
Yeah, and our market is so flooded with wineries. And I think it's because we're getting to this point of recognition now, it's the time for all these other wineries to really differentiate their experiences, differentiate their wine styles, to really create a valuable experience for consumers.
Right. And, we are having fun. And like when we started talking about this, like we all need to start having fun again. Suddenly you and I are starting to have fun again. And I've seen the other wineries and some of the other winemakers go, yeah, let's have more fun. And I'm hoping that, not that our podcast changes that, but that when we start talking about having fun, the people that listen to this are going to go to wineries and go, you guys need to have more fun. You're not making this fun. That's what I want. Do it, listeners. Do it.
Finger pointing and everything.
Yeah, like.
There's a double-edged sword to how you're conveying that this goes down.
I think I want people to have as much fun drinking wine as I've had making it. How about that?
That's
because it's not a grind all the time.
No, it is fun.
And it's fun to market wine, right? Like you're marketing alcohol. Wine. Who doesn't like that?
I mean, this no alcohol trend, and we'll talk more about that later on. It is a little bit of a buzzkill, but I mean, it is fun to market wine.
Better than marketing socks.
It is very true. I've been a marketer in the tech industry before, and I've worked in the nonprofit world and have to market, the programs that we're doing. And honestly, of anything that I've had to market, wine is the most fun.
Right.
Beer is an interesting, because I also marketed beer at one point in time. Beer is fun, but like wine and kind of like taking it down from that fine wine and still having like an edutainment and getting cool shots for videos and stuff like that and making it approachable for consumers. That's a fun challenge for me.
Right. And I can see that. I mean, our socials at Chrysalis are fun. I mean,
we've got decent.
No, I think they're really great.
For improvement.
Well, sure, we could all improve.
I mean, I'm working off my phone, and the phone is like key that nowadays.
You're a one-man market or one-woman marketing firm.
What are you talking about? I use tasting room associates to help me, move things around.
They're having fun.
Sure.
And they're getting ready to do cool things.
They get voluntold all the time.
Yeah, well, thank you, tasting room staff at Chrysalis Vineyards.
Yeah, y'all are doing awesome things,
Right, but don't tell them we made this and talked about them. I don't want them to think we like them. I love you, Mark. So you hit on a point about like so now we've talked about natives and we've gone into talking about how the Virginia wine industry has been elevated to the point where it's gotten serious. So let's talk about a winery in Virginia that is a lot of fun and is also using a hybrid that I really like. And so this is Nokesville Winery Cayuga. Yeah. And Cayuga is a hybrid from Cornell in like the early 1900s-ish. I mean, we could all Google the answer. So probably could do better going forward. But
come on, Jake.
So Cayuga is a hybrid of hybrids. So it's a cross between Seyval Blanc and Schuler, apparently.
I've never heard of that. Right?
Neither have I. I learned that today. When I asked the winemaker over and owner of Nokesville, like, what is...
Jake's doing last minute homework.
I'm doing it.
Y'all should have seen us before we started recording. We were both doing our last minute homework.
I mean, yeah, and chasing toddlers.
Yeah.
So it's Cayuga. Cayuga's terrific. I've had Cayuga from primarily the Finger Lakes areas where you're going to find a lot of it. And then you'll find some of it in Georgia where I got to work with it for the first time. And I've tasted it when I was in college because they try to get you to taste as many different varieties and as many different wine regions. And this college does a really great about that. Cayuga has become one of my favorite varieties. And Dustin, the owner of Nokesville Winery in Nokesville, is obsessed with Cayuga, and he planted it and he gets it to grow very well in Virginia. And he makes this delightful wine. If now you've tasted a native and now you've tasted a hybrid Cayuga, I think you've had this before, probably.
I have had it before, and I love Dustin's wines. I think he does a phenomenal job. This is very bright, easy drinking for me, honestly, because it's that nice dry wine that I enjoy. And you said comparing between the two, like the Concord nose that you're talking about, the muscadine nose, the foxy nose. I enjoy it. I'm not going to gravitate towards something like this personally.
Sure.
This is more my realm.
Right.
I mean, I love all of Dustin's wines. I'd probably take a whole case of all of his wines home, but I do enjoy this.
Oh, he actually put the winemaking notes on the side.
Oh, he does love you. Oh, no, it's actually on the label.
Printed on the label.
But we're going back to experience. We talked about a little bit about the wine, but his experience is a little bit more relaxed.
Yeah.
But so super knowledgeable.
Yeah, I mean, he's chilling out. He's hanging out with the people when he can. He's talking to you. He's telling you what he's doing and why he's doing it. And so there's a connection there.
100%.
But he's not like, what's the right word?
He's not arrogant. He's not egotistical. Dustin is one of those people, you walk in a room and you feel immediately like you're his best friend.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And all of his staff that works there is the exact same way. So the moment you walk through the door, you're greeted. The moment you sit down, if your glass is empty, I feel like I've had 2 people pass me at some point. Right. It's like, are you sure you don't need anything? I'm like, I'll come to the counter. It's fine. No. If you want something, I'll put it on your tab. Don't worry.
Yeah. But he's also talking to you about what he's doing and why he loves it, but he's listening to why you're there and what you like to drink. And I think that
because he wants to bring you back.
Right.
He's trying to find that hook and make you a return customer.
Right. And I think, Dustin's the kind of guy that he does a wine tasting in, cargo shorts and a polo. And, he's just, you would not think he was a traditional winemaker. He's not in a suit. He's not,
he's not in the plaid and the vest.
The puffy vest.
Yeah, the jeans, the plaid, and the vest.
Yeah.
It's like the quintessential winemaker vibe.
It is. Yeah. It's comfy. I don't like puffy vests, but it is comfy.
You have a Carhartt vest. I count that.
Well,
by the way, we're not sponsored by Carhartt. I'm just mentioning it because
not yet Carhartt. So here's the question. So we're tasting this hybrid. What is a hybrid?
Hybrid is just bred with vinifera, right? It's bred for the environment.
So a hybrid is taking 2 things and then breeding them together, and then they just keep doing that until they get something that is good.
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of the idea. And what is good? Why would you want to hybridize something?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, seriously. What do you think the reason for a hybrid is?
Well, let's see. Pest resistance.
Sure.
Just generally environmental pressures.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest challenges I feel like you fight with all the time.
Sure.
Is environmental pressures on the varietal itself. And then ultimately, does it taste good?
Right. Well, and this is a big thing. I think it's really cool what Cornell is doing with this great breeding program that they've been running forever. And they've been creating a lot of these really cool varieties. And there's one on the West Coast. I think it's out of Fresno State. I'd have to look more into it. And I think maybe Missouri does one too, but they're breeding grapes because part of the reason is they're trying to battle disease pressures. So I would say south of Richmond all the way down to the tip of Florida, there's what's called Pierce's disease, and it's just a super invasive disease. It's carried over by insects that feed on the vine itself, and they basically suck out the water out of the vine and the nutrients out of the vine. But no, this is it's glassy wing sharpshooters.
Oh, yeah.
So glassy wing sharpshooter pierces the vine with a little stylet and it sucks out the water, right? It's honestly harmless until they regurgitate Pierce's disease into the vine, which essentially is like a heart attack waiting to happen because they're just plugging up the veins and eventually the vine can't pull water to itself or give itself nutrients to leave. So it blocks that blood vessel and essentially the vine dies. But it's really popular from Richmond, Virginia, all the way down. And then I think it's made it out as far as probably Texas, the east coast of Texas, and then spots of California, I believe. So California was like, oh no, we're really worried about this. And they hybridized a Chardonnay that is immune to Pierce's. It's technically Chardonnay, but it's also a hybrid.
So it's
it was bred to be
bark tougher, or how?
I'm not exactly sure. I haven't looked too much into it. I know that the vines are now available for purchase. Anybody can buy them. Mostly producers are preferred at this time just because it's still, this guy has been working on it for 20 years and he's finally got to the point where it's time to sell, go to the market, and he can't keep enough vines to sell. So
I'm sure when you say here's this pest resistant vine, everybody goes flooding to it as long as it produces the same quality wine.
Mm-hmm. Then you got to like look at Cornell, right? Cornell's at the Finger Lakes. Finger Lakes are cold. They're creating varieties to battle the snow, to battle the cold. So they're using a lot of like cold hardy varieties, and they keep creating clones. Well, hybridizing takes years to do. I mean, you're talking like 10, 15, 20 years. And if they have one thing that's successful, they have to keep replicating it until they get a strong enough version that will go to a production level where it'll grow fast, continuously. They can measure how disease resistant it is. That takes time. So hybrids are usually for those reasons.
So since we're talking about the schools that are working to hybridize these grapes, right? Let's talk about some of the names of the hybrid grapes.
Okay. So my favorite is Aramella.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah,
it sounds
beautiful
so
name.
soft, and to me it gives like oh gosh, what am I thinking of? Like Vidal, like a sweeter Vidal Blanc kind of vibe. That's my impression of that name. It's
more like I think I've always thought Aramella would be a perfect sparkling wine grape. It's very similar to like
sparkling.
Petite Manseng. It meets Chardonnay, so it's got this like
apricot. And
it's very acid driven.
Okay.
Vidal Blanc is another great one if you've been to Virginia.
It sounds lovely, but then there's others that are not.
Yeah, there's like XR 2026-2-4.
I feel like that would resonate with some Star Wars fans. Like if they turned that into a wine, that would be a great market.
You should start a Star Wars themed winery.
I think that would be awesome.
Call George Lucas.
Yeah,
I'm down. They'd be all over it. And then like of course there's Saval Blanc, which we mentioned earlier. There's also the Munson varieties, which is this guy from out of Texas who created a whole bunch of hybrids of his own, and essentially his personal vineyard, and then he released them. And they have all kinds of really funny names. There's America.
I mean, okay, valuable. Okay, look,
How would you market America?
I love America. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't think that's like the greatest name for a grape. Like you could have been like Liberty, the Freedom Wine. I don't know.
Right. I mean,
there could have been other things that were a little softer than America.
There's Diamond.
I mean, wait, hold on, back. Is it a red wine?
I believe it is a red variety.
Okay, and to me, like if you're gonna go out and you're gonna be like, this is the American wine,
right?
It needs to be bold, like a Tannat or something.
Yeah,
and it could come out the door and be like Pinot Noir, like body.
A little elegant, very dainty. No, I mean it's going to be loud,
it's very
and powerful.
Demure.
It needs to demure. God,
it had to come up at some point.
It needs to be 40 proof. We're not even talking in alcohol percentages at this point. We're in proofs.
Moonshine,
it's just jet fuel. No, I think we had just planted it right before I had left Georgia. I never got to actually. No, I did not plant the country of America. No, the grape. We planted America in one of our experimental vineyards that I was working with down in Georgia, and I was really excited about it because I was like, "What's going to happen?" And I was young, and I was very excited for hybrids, and I left.
Oh, I was like, "Did it?"
I left before I never heard from the grower and how it went. Maybe I should reach out.
Are you actually curious though?
Sort of. I mean,
you're. I'm not saying a nerd, but a bookworm, research nerd.
I do read.
Yeah,
I do read. Thanks. Well, nerds are cool now.
Yeah, nerds are cool now.
I like to read scientific articles. I don't understand all of them, but I like to read them, and I peruse the AJEV, the American Journal of Enology and Viticulture. I check it probably monthly. And I have friends out in California that are researchers. Dr. Bruce Socklin is, I guess we're friends at this point. I don't know.
Bruce is awesome.
He is awesome. He does help us out. And and I've called him a few times on occasion and asked like the greatest enologist in America. Like I have his cell phone. I can call him and be like, I'm having X problem. What should I do? And he'll give me advice. I don't always understand the advice he says either. I could be a professor emeritus myself for Virginia Tech and still not understand Bruce Socklin sometimes. I mean, he's just so high level and he's written tons of books. So, yeah. Where were we going with this?
We were
hybrids. Okay.
We were talking about like crazy hybrid names.
Okay. So, I worked with one called Enchantress.
That sounds like a Disney wine.
It was kind of the running joke. We used to call it Elsa in the cellar. And we actually did
you just want to let it go?
No.
Just let it all go.
No. We actually made a frozen dessert wine from it where we froze the grapes and then pressed it off.
An ice wine
and it was an ice wine, and it was just like this running joke. And the owner of the winery...
Did you put a snowflake on the front of it?
No.
Ice castle. Sorry.
We would, the assistant winemaker, she would run around the cellar, and I'd be like, hey, we need to filter the wine, and da-da-da-da, and she would be like, let it go, all through the cellar. And we would be like, oh my God. And it was funny at first, and then it happened every time we touched the wine. I think all the winemakers were happy that it finally left the cellar.
So you were ready to let it go?
Yeah, we were ready. And so how would be marketing for a hybrid?
How would be marketing for a hybrid?
Like how would you do that?
Okay. And the industry might hate me for saying this. It's just like marketing any other wine. It depends on the goals of the winery itself. So if you're a winery who wants to educate consumers on the difference between a native and a hybrid,
sure,
cool. And that's part of your messaging, let's drive it home. But honestly, amongst consumers, there's just not that knowledge base there. So why bring it up and start the stigma? It's already a stigma within the industry. And you're like, oh, don't drink that because it's a blank.
Right.
Or don't drink, oh, I love that, but it's a hybrid. Like, I hear that all the time. And I'm like, consumers aren't saying that.
Yeah.
Consumers want what tastes good, one, and they want a fun brand that they connect with. Fun, elevated, whatever brand they connect with. They don't care whether it's a hybrid or a native. So how would I market it? I would market it just like wine.
It's just wine for you.
It's just wine for me.
All right.
I mean, I'm
equal opportunity marketing person.
Equal opportunity drinker. So,
Well, I respect that. At what point as a consumer do you become like
aware?
I don't know if that's the right, maybe at what point does a consumer go from being like a consumer, that's enjoying things and exploring something, to an actual nerd or professional or amateur interest, or and then when you become that, do you think they then go, oh God, hybrids? Because you said there's occasionally you hear that
knowledge base. So yeah. So when it comes to at what point? So if you're going to a winery, I don't know, once a month, you're not really going to get the knowledge, I don't think. I mean, if you're not exploring wine regularly in, your local bottle shop or your grocery store, you're not going to know enough to be like, oh yeah, this is a hybrid. So it's going to be the people who are going every weekend where they're going to start having that awareness, like your frequent flyers. But even still, it comes back to how your tasting room is conveying that. It comes back to your messaging and what's important to your winery. Is it important to educate them on the difference between hybrids and natives? And really the difference, like what you said, is you're just breeding something to, one, taste good, and two, grow well.
Right. And I think, and I would say personally, I feel like that's the missed marketing opportunity for hybrids. I know personally a lot of winemakers and winery owners that are planting only hybrids or going to only hybrids because of the environmental climate change and those kind of issues.
So yeah, when it comes back to environmental side of things, if you want to market low, what do you call it? Low impact. What do you talk?
Low sustainable farming.
Sustainable farming.
Low environmental.
Low intervention is what you normally
use.
Low intervention is what you normally use. So from that perspective, we have a lot more consumers who are becoming educated on what goes into things, right? But in the wine industry, we really don't talk about what goes into things from the seller perspective, how things are treated in the vineyard. And now there's more of that awareness. So I think there's this opportunity now to then talk about how hybrids also help lower our, intervention in the vineyard, intervention in the cellar.
Right.
From that perspective, you're trying to say, hey, we've done less to this. But then that also starts a conversation, which...
what were you doing before?
Welcome to Wine Fringe. What the crap are you doing before?
Right.
What were you spraying? What are you adding as an additive into this wine that's not listed on the ingredients label? And that's becoming a new thing. We're adding a label. So it's going to be a conversation.
It is. I think, I know that a lot of producers and winemakers are just rolling their eyes. I know a lot of winemakers, they take a job for a producer and it's a job, and they're learning and practicing their craft, and that's what they're doing. And that's where they want to be. And that's cool. And they're very good at it. And at the same time, I know that there are winemakers now that are seeking out these wineries, like Tablas Creek in California, super wonderful producer, and they're really leaning into, and I'm not going to say biodynamic because I can't remember if they are or aren't, but I know they're like almost sustainable. They have sheep in the vineyard, and they have a herd. They herd dogs. They have herd dogs to move the sheep. They have an actual shepherd, like a real person who's like life is being a shepherd. And they have winemakers, and but they're like very sustainable unto themselves. They have, these varieties that have kind of evolved and become their own clones that are suitable for that growing site. And it's a very cool thing. And now they're doing low intervention or zero intervention winemaking.
Okay, so now they're able to talk about that because it's more of an all-encompassing program.
So they've always been talking about it.
Well, they've always been talking about it. Okay, so when you ask, like, hey, like, how would you market it? It all comes back down to what are your goals as a winery?
Okay.
So, like, from, I've worked at a few wineries in the industry. They're not all talking about low intervention because they don't want to start the conversation of what gets done in the vineyard, right? And then you have other wineries who are like, yeah, we're using hybrids. Let's talk about that. So again, it comes back to your goals and what you want to talk about.
And I know,
but it's marketable to be sustainable.
It is, and here's the sad truth at the end of the day. Like, you're running a business, right? Okay, it's your winery, and you're gonna die on a hill for I want to be sustainable and low environmental impact and all the cool stuff, all the greenwashing words, all the hippie ideals. I love that stuff. I think it's really cool. But then you plant all hybrids, and every time somebody walks in the tasting room, you're like, here is my Save-All Blanc, or Save-All Blanc, or Vidal Blanc, or here's my America. Try America. And they're like, what is that? And then there's jokes about, the name of the grape. And then you're having this conversation now trying to explain to them like, oh no, it's a real serious grape. And they're like, okay. And they're not taking it seriously at this point. And you've died on this hill of like planting hybrids to be the best in the environment. But did you even have a conversation that was successful? Like, that's a very difficult thing to do. We see that when we talk about Norton. Like, what's Norton? Well, it's this, and we've gotten very good at the pitch, right? We're like, this is Virginia's grape. Like, you should try it. And then people are like, oh, okay, cool.
Virginia's native grape.
Virginia's native grape.
Yeah, it's not actually classified as Virginia's grape. I'm sorry.
We're coming for you, Missouri. I
don't really want Missouri banging down our door.
But here's the other side of this. There are centuries of winemaking for things like Cabernet Sauvignon and Petit Verdot and Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc. There's like maybe 20 years for most of these hybrids, or 50 years for most of these hybrids. I think Chambourcin is maybe 100 years old. So there's not winemaking for this. And what that means is, like, they don't know how to make it to the best. They don't know what it's supposed to grow to. They don't know how to pick it or how to manipulate it or make it into good wine in the cellar. There's no recipe. There's no history. There's no textbook on some of these varieties. So you got these winemakers trying to figure it out. And if you plant a new variety, you have no experience behind it, like, you're going to have a hard time in the cellar. Maybe you'll get lucky, but like the consistency of quality needed for something like that, like, we know, don't plant Cabernet Sauvignon at the bottom of the mountain where the cold settles. We know this. You don't necessarily know all those things with a hybrid. And so now your wine's not good. And that's kind of where hybrids start to lose, is because the wine quality isn't always there.
Okay, fair.
So
fair.
I like hybrids. I don't love Chambourcin.
Okay, but that's, we come back to this with you and I all the time, where it's like, okay, you and I have not found a Chambourcin that either of us really truly was like, hey, I love this wine. But it's all in the preparation, so it basically to what you're saying, it's all in the preparation. We just haven't found a preparation that we enjoy yet. Right.
And that brings us to the greater point, right? So, like, we all know Merlot got killed by the movie Sideways. And that happened, and people stopped drinking Merlot, and it actually did impact the industry. And now people are coming back around. I love Merlot. I don't love Chambourcin, but when I walk into a tasting room and I do a tasting, and you're proud of your Chambourcin, or it's just part of your tasting or your flights, I'm going to try it. And I'm always going to try it. And I'm going to not try it one quick sip and go, oh, I hate Chambourcin, and toss it back. I'm going to go, I don't like Chambourcin, but I'll give this a shot. And I'll try to evaluate it as its own wine, not the grape. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And that's my opinion. Like,
but I mean, this is what general consumers should be doing too.
Right.
Like when you go into a tasting room, like try to put your preconceived notions about any wine you've tried at the door.
Right.
And you're stepping into a new experience, different winemaker, different terroir and everything, and just try everything.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the most frustrating thing as a winemaker is like, you know, you make a really good blah blah blah, and a consumer goes, I don't want that. I don't like blah blah blah. And it's like, okay, well then the last 16 months of winemaking and growing the grapes, that 24 months that it's taken, like you just you know, passed up on something that could change your mind of that. And it's a little disheartening. And then usually 10 other people will try it, so it's fine. But when you get like somebody who's like, I love wine, and then they won't even try that because they've had a bad example of it somewhere else, or they had a style that they didn't care for. And so that's like always my thing with consumers. It's like, try everything. If you don't like it, that's okay. And you should say, I don't like this.
Yeah.
But try everything. If you're paying money to do the tasting, don't skip one wine. You've lost your own money then.
Yeah. I mean,
so got to try it all.
We say this, but we are also guilty of carrying some of those preconceived notions with us as hard as we try.
Of course.
Because me and, oh gosh, I'm having trouble remembering the name of it. Starts with a T.
Starts with a T.
Starts with a T. It's not.
Not?
No, it's a white wine.
Do we make it?
No, we don't. Oh, golly day. Well, I'll remember it by the time we get to the end. Oh, gosh. It tastes like your grandma's perfume.
Oh, Traminette.
Thank you.
Okay, so wait. Let's talk about Traminette for a second.
I didn't mean to start an argument at the end.
No. Traminette is the worst grape variety.
Okay, we just said leave your preconceived notions at the door, but I said
I'm telling consumers. No, I'm going to tell consumers on this. I absolutely cannot stand Traminette. It smells like your mother's closet, mothballs.
Oh my gosh.
It just has this overwhelmingly floral nose. And when somebody goes, here's my 100% Traminette wine.
I gag.
It is wonderful. And that cork comes out of that bottle.
And you can smell it.
I can immediately smell it. And it doesn't matter who makes it, how it's made. Doesn't matter. It's gonna smell like that, and it's gonna taste like it smells. It tastes like perfume.
Okay.
And that's a style thing. If you like
it's not even a style. I've tried it in blends. I've tried it. So Kurt, my husband, brought me home a blend from this winery on his way home from work one day, and he was like, "Hey, I got you something that I think you're really gonna like." And I like tasted it, and I thought, that's like 5%. The varietal you said I liked, like Vidal Blanc. But that is 95% Traminette. Sure enough, they had the percentages on the back. I was off by like 3%. And I said, I love you. Please don't bring this home again.
Yeah, I mean, Traminette is such a great name.
It's like it's like an awesome name. It's great branding.
Yeah, but the wine, and there's a producer here in Virginia, and I don't know who they are. I can't remember. I tasted them at a wine festival, and they were like, telling me, and I was like really into it. It's like young guy, and he's like, I just started this business, and I've got investors, and like I'm doing my favorite variety. And I'm like, oh man, that's so exciting. I can't wait to taste your wine. And he's like, we make 3 types of Traminette.
3?
And I was like, oh.
Close your doors.
And then and I'm tasting these Traminettes, and I'm like, they just taste the same.
They taste like Traminette.
They taste like Traminette.
I think it's a hard grape to really show a different expression.
So I would say Traminette is akin to muscadine. This muscadine we just tasted will, like, at the end of the day, the only real difference in muscadine, like white muscadine, is going to be the sweetness level, and or maybe it got oak. That's really going to be the only difference. Or maybe there's a style of wine they're emulating, like a sparkling. Traminette is the same way.
Yeah, but there's a niche market that loves it. I remember when we sold Traminette at one of my previous employers. We had a club member who would come in, and the moment a new vintage was released, they would buy 4 cases.
He must smoke and not have a palate.
No, they were really sweet. The lady was really put together, and I thought, do you really enjoy popping open the top of your grandma's perfume and chugging it? Like,
was she a grandma?
No, she was like.
Well, and I got nothing.
I don't know her age group, but her son was about my age, so take from that as
22.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so
basically what we learned from this is Jake and I are essentially hypocrites.
Yeah, of
because
course.
We said, leave your preconceived notions at the door and try everything. That being said, I will try Tremonette.
I agreed. I still tried
try it.
This producer, he had 3 Tremonettes. I tried it. He told me that he was working on 3 more styles, which was okay. But, he was very passionate about it, and I was able to buy into it. That did not mean I bought a bottle.
No.
But I tasted it.
But you recognize the art behind it. You recognize the attempt as well.
Right. And I thought it was cool that that Tremonette found someone in the industry that loves it. And I thought that was important.
And if you're passionate about the varietal and you're passionate about your wine, you will find consumers.
Right.
In an ideal world.
And so I think before we switch from the subtopic of hybrids, I think we touched on Norton being a native hybrid, and I think we should dive into that while we're letting this red wine breathe.
Are we going to talk about the group?
The group? No. I think we keep the group a secret. No, I just think that we need to like as the Norton producer of the world, the big deal, largest producer, and we like to think we're a huge deal. We are. Yeah, we are. So
more gumption this time.
Yeah. Norton was hybridized for the purpose of making good American wine. That was the idea from Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah.
And then Dr. Daniel Norton figured it out. But he was looking at it Dr. Norton was most likely looking at it from the perspective of being able to make good wine in a Virginia vineyard. And so Norton does really well in Virginia.
Yeah.
Anywhere you plant it. It would grow in sand at the beach, I'm pretty sure. Let's move to the beach.
Done.
Start a winery, plant some Norton, see what happens. No,
I'm just ready for the sand.
I know that Norton is planted in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. I know it's planted in Tennessee, Arkansas, California. I've sold vines to a gentleman in Texas. Chrysalis has sold vines to a winery in Japan that apparently was able to root it and grow it successfully. And I know that there's Norton wine being grown and made in Georgia. We sold the vines to the Georgia, the country. So that's kind of cool. I don't know how successful it is in relation to like how we do it in our backyard, but we have to remember that hybrids are created for a reason, and they're looking for something particular like disease resistance and climate, environment, site, and then wine quality comes kind of at the last step for hybridizations and hybrids. So
it's unfortunate because at the end of the day, I know all of these things are important, but at the end of the day, someone has to drink your wine.
Right. So, somebody has to pay for that.
Someone has to pay for it. And we come back to either you really are going to drink all your own wine or you're going to make something that's popular amongst consumers. Right. And I mean, Norton is not an easy grape to deal with in the cellar either. So you want to talk about that a little bit?
It's very challenging. It's tiny berries, a lot of skin and pulp, low juice yield. The pH and the chemistry is basically just irrelevant to the greater purpose. That's just the truth. So you're making wine with variables that don't follow the natural winemaking rules. So Norton in the cellar, yes, it's challenging. Yeah, go ahead.
For reds, it doesn't really have a whole lot of mid palate. So what do you have to do?
So in my time at Chrysalis, I've learned not to do too much actually to the juice and during winemaking process. It's all about technique. So no chemical manipulation, no chemistry manipulation, really just focusing on the technique of how it's processed and how it's cared for. That's the focus now.
Yeah.
And we have found that it's always just a little bit thin in the mid palate, but it's because Norton's got higher acids for a red.
Okay.
And to me, I always think that it's akin to Pinot Noir or Sangiovese, which are higher acid driven reds. And, with Sangiovese, you generally just either you blend the acid down or you just, it's Sangiovese, get over it. With Pinot Noir, there's a number of different things you could do. And that's kind of how we're starting to treat Norton in the cellars. We're just trying all the different things and seeing what happens.
Well, you have a lot of great success with carbonic maceration.
Right.
Something you love to talk about.
No, I think we're good for today.
Oh, really?
No.
By the way, I gave him the platform, and he chose not to step up to it.
I think we talk about Norton and carbonic maceration later.
Got it.
But I think
the
carbonic
soapbox has been pushed to the side.
Soapbox.
Let the record show.
I do love that winemaking style, and I love what it does for Norton. And I'll keep it quick. It's the same winemaking technique they use to make Beaujolais Nouveau. We do it with Norton, and the reason we do it for Norton is not to make Beaujolais Nouveau, even though we make a Norton Nouveau, is to drop the acid and change it for alcohol.
Which I'm a huge advocate for. More alcohol. But don't be worried it doesn't turn into like moonshine or
No. Unfortunately, you only get 2% alcohol out of it.
Hey, we're grabbing for every percent we can.
But you got to think about it. Like Norton's already at 12 to 13% coming out of the vineyard. Like when you like know it's going to be 12, 13.
It's going to get a little hot. Who cares?
And then you add 2% on top of that, and it shaves the acid down, which with time in barrel, it makes a smoother.
You're just determining what burn you're getting.
Right.
An acid burn or an alcohol burn.
And we all want the alcohol. No heartburn for me today.
No.
So Cayuga, like, did it taste like a hybrid?
Here's the thing. Like, I consider myself a general consumer. Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm industry professional, but
of course.
I think it tastes like a great wine. And that's all that matters.
And that's kind of, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Dustin's work anyway, but I'm also a huge fan of the varieties he's chosen to plant and work with, because
love the flavor profile.
Yeah, always. He's still young. He's still learning. He's a new facility.
He has an incredibly consistent lineup for
being so young. Quality is good. The styles of wine are really good. And Dustin, if you actually do listen to this, like,
he will.
You need to sponsor us. No,
he did. He supplied.
Well, he did. He
wine.
A couple bottles. But no, it doesn't taste like anything special. It's just fine wine.
Tasting for
exactly.
Because when you say hybrid versus native, I'm like, what wine fault am I supposed to be tasting for?
But that's ridiculous. Like, hybrids are not a fault.
Exactly. But when people present the conversation, a lot of them present it negatively, and that's what you look for.
Right. And I think that's done by the person presenting the wine, because they don't actually understand a hybrid, usually tasting room staff. And that's just us needing to train tasting staff more.
And that's a management to tasting room issue. That's not necessarily, But
I also think it's like this elitist kind of thing where they're like, oh, you're making Cayuga. You clearly don't know the good word of Sauvignon Blanc. Yeah, it's exactly.
Mentality.
It's ridiculous to us.
And it also is feeding into that whole, like, the vinifera only.
Yeah, right.
And so the varietals that are just familiar to consumers, these other hybrids are going to be fun for consumers to have. Yeah. And in addition to your lineup. And
I mean, there are some really good hybrid only, native only wineries in America that we're not talking about. And I should have just dawned on me, like Dear Native Grapes in New York. He's doing really cool winemaking, grape growing. I think it's just him and his wife doing it. It's a passion project for them. Like, and they sent me a bottle of their wine after I sold them some vines, and it was phenomenal. I had no idea it was a native or a hybrid. It was just really good red wine. And definitely check them out, Dear Native Grapes. Good stuff.
And all this being said, we've really focused on, native and hybrid, but I do love a good vinifera wine.
Okay. Well, all right, so
we gotta bring it back.
Okay. So I poured for you. I've been saving this wine for a while, and like I said the other night when we were talking about this, I couldn't remember why I bought this.
It's delicious.
Is it?
I like it.
All right.
Our palates tend to differ.
I mean, that nose is amazing.
Yeah.
So this is Arrowwood, in California, Cabernet Sauvignon, Sonoma County. They are mostly organic produced, or at least they have organic vineyards. And I believe this doesn't say it's certified organic. No, but it's Knights Valley. I think that's the vineyard. It's a solid. I know they've got a really great winemaker. She's very talented. I've had Arrowwood wine before. It's all the stuff. I've never had anything bad, but I can't remember why I bought this one specifically. There was a reason. So I've been sitting on this for 4 years now.
Oh man, I'm flattered. I'm saving just for Wine Fringe podcast. So it's delicious.
Cabernet Sauvignon. Nose is delicious. God, it's just
it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That's dangerous.
Yeah, it's 14.5% alcohol.
Yeah.
You're like, hello, California. So this is a vinifera, right? And vinifera is just, European varieties or the old world varieties. It's Cabernet Sauvignon, which is a vinifera, but it's also a hybrid.
Dirty words.
I know. So all these pretentious people, but it's not the hybrid that was intentionally bred, right? It was kind of discovered in the vineyard.
Yeah.
So it's I'm sure you know what the parents of the hybrid are, which are
Sauv Blanc.
Sauv Blanc.
And Cabernet Franc.
Yes, that's right. So it's Cab Franc, Sauv Blanc.
When you make that look, I immediately think I have the wrong answer, which is why I stumbled a couple times.
No, I think you're doing great.
Sarcasm. Did you hear that inflection?
You're doing wonderful.
I need more from you.
Cabernet Sauvignon is a hybrid, and we forget this. And does it taste less than another vinifera wine?
No.
I
mean, everybody I feel like when they talk about big bold reds, especially like I'm coming back to general consumers, I think they immediately go to Cab Sav.
Yeah, they love it.
They love it,
and that's fine.
And it's a hybrid. So
right, but let's talk about why everybody doesn't have Cabernet Sauvignon. It doesn't grow well everywhere.
No, it doesn't.
It is a primo grape. It does make wonderful wine, and there are vineyards here in Virginia that grow it. And they're like, we love Cab Sauv. And, it's mostly in all of their blends. And then occasionally, like once in 10 years, they go, we made a single varietal Cabernet Sauvignon. And everyone goes crazy over it. And it's usually pretty good. The problem is that it's not consistently good here in Virginia. And I'll die on that. We can talk about this.
No, it's not consistently good. And every time, But what Cab does do well is Cab Franc.
Right. And
that's where we, like, as Virginia, we're like, we have a cab.
We have a Cabernet. It's like, oh my gosh.
Everybody's going crazy over the fact that we have a cab.
But my opinion of Virginia Cabernet Franc is really, it's still hit or miss. It's more consistent.
Yeah.
Right. So it's maybe like instead of 1 in 10, it's 2 in 5. And that's pretty good, but you're running a business, you're making wine, you can't lose money, and you're going to make 3 bad vintages of wine before you get 2 good vintages.
Okay. I think hear me out.
Right.
Virginia has figured out whites.
Yeah.
They're easier because they're quicker turnaround.
Agreed.
Right? Reds, I feel like we're still kind of getting our footing. We're finally starting to see that traction. And I think when you say 2 out of 5 wineries have a good, like, Cab Franc.
2 out of 5 vintages.
Vintages. Okay. 2 out of 5 vintages.
I say 1 in 5 wineries have a good Cab Franc.
I feel that way about most wineries when it comes to reds.
Right. I mean...
And it's becoming increasingly less of my opinion, because you have places like Capstone Vineyards who have phenomenal reds.
Yeah.
You have places like Nokesville, phenomenal reds.
Right.
And I would say that they're the exception.
Well, you have Linden Vineyards, right?
Well, fair.
So
I can't name all the good ones.
Well, I mean, Linden does. I mean, they're known to be like the best winery in Virginia, and RDV sold to Chateau Montreuil and those folks, but RDV got its start at Linden. Like, he learned from Jim. Like, Jim helped them. It was just basically another Linden offshoot from somebody who really appreciates good work. And Linden proves that, like, with dedication and serious passion and no music in the vineyard while you're working, you can make fine wine in Virginia. That's what he proved. And he proved it, and it's very good wine. And you know how much I love Linden and Jim Law and the whole concept behind it.
I've seen the posters.
Yeah, they're everywhere. But I mean, our variety in Virginia as Cab Franc is still, to me, makes no sense. I think it's probably should be Norton. But the thing is, like, Norton's not going to market well at the end of the day. It's not a very good name for a grape.
No, I don't know that's the name, because you can put anything into a blend and make a nice marketable name associated with it. But if we're talking about single varietal, yes, the name does not necessarily sell well. but it produces some really great wines. And I think you drive home the characteristics that the consumer will resonate with.
Well, that's like if we put Norton in a bottle and we called it Delicious Red Wine, and that was the name of the wine.
Fanciful.
Yeah, and we gave it a fanciful name and didn't, even though it's 100% Norton, we just called it like Awesome Red Wine or Delicious Red Wine. Just gave it some name that people found attractive that caused them to taste it. Would they buy it?
I think they would be more inclined to buy it.
Right. Yeah. Because they get stuck on the name of the variety. Yeah. And I'll say it on right now is like, I know there's somebody going, well, Cynthiana, and I'm like, yeah, okay, Cynthiana, Norton, are they two separate varieties? Like, or is it just like a regional name for a grape? I don't know. There's research going on that's not convincing me one way or the other. They've done research on this, still not convinced. It's not a Pinot Grigio situation, in my opinion. It's not a Syrah Shiraz thing. I think it's most likely a clonal difference, but I don't have any scientific evidence to back that up. It's just my theory.
Let's wrap this up.
Yeah. All right, so we've got Vinifera. All right, so Vinifera, right?
Yeah.
Fantastic. We know it's consistent. The only thing that I would point out is like this is a Cabernet Sauvignon. You are not going to go to Europe and you're not going to go to Bordeaux and taste a Cabernet Sauvignon. You're going to taste a blend of Vinifera. Yeah. And that's a very important thing. Yeah. So like the new world really hyper focuses on single varietals. The old world is blend focused. And that's very important. And they're calling their blends based on their region. It's producer and then the region. This is Châteauneuf-du-Pape. And the producer doesn't even matter because it's Châteauneuf-du-Pape. It could be, let's see, what's this thing? Bodegas Rota in Spain, right? It's a Rioja. And you don't care. I mean, they don't care what the variety is. They just care that it's the blend. Now, it's going to be Tempranillo based blend. Right? If you go to Bordeaux, it's going to be Cab Franc, Cab Sauv based. So,
but general consumers don't know.
General consumers.
All right. So we've talked about Vinifera. We've talked about hybrids. We've talked about natives. Jake, out of all of the wines we tasted today, which one was your favorite?
Out of the three?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't do that.
You don't do that?
I don't do that. I mean, so like. As a winemaker, you're probably not going to do that.
You're not.
Okay. I mean, there are going to be winemakers that hate certain things, but at the end of the day, like most of us, and this is my opinion, most of us don't actually care.
Okay, well, what do you like for each of the wines?
So
just break it down real quick. Your 30-second elevator speech.
The Muscadine's very good. Yeah. Love it. It's cool. Definitely try it. Try it at least once.
Okay.
The Cayuga, Dustin does a fantastic job. I think he's consistent. This is a very great example of what hybrids can be when they're made well, but also a very particular hybrid that's good. And then the Arrowhead Cabernet Sauvignon, the producer's wonderful. The winemaker's terrific. The vineyards are well maintained. Terrific red.
Awesome.
What's yours?
I love the Concord, not Concord. I keep saying Concord.
It's Muscadine.
I like the Muscadine for. I would gravitate towards it if I wanted something sweet. I would also gravitate towards Cayuga if I wanted just something like easy drinking.
Right.
Something I'm gonna go out and hang out with some friends and share a bottle.
Sure.
And then, this Cab Sav is one of those sit in front of the fire. I feel like all Cab Savs are sit in front of a fire and have a deep conversation. And we ended on this wine, so we've been having this deep conversation. Yeah. So it feels like it just is tipping everything off.
It's definitely a food wine. It's also definitely just a drinkable sipping wine. And I think you get that from it's kind of expected, right? We're opening a big red. It's going to be a sipping wine.
Yeah. So closing notes.
Well, the big question is like... Yeah, all right. Okay. What is what's the takeaway here for people that are listening?
Try everything.
That's right. Viniferas are always going to be there. Yeah. Hybrids are always only ever going to be on the horizon, in my opinion. They'll always be something that's just going forward and almost there.
I don't think we'll see that tip in our generation.
I don't. I think you're going to start to see producers that are doing it very well. Natives, probably only going to be ever favored by the people that grew up around it. So.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for listening. This is Wine Fringe. My name is Jill Smedley, and this is Jake Blottinger.
It is.
Yeah, it is. And we will be back
as soon as we can.
Yeah.